We strike this evening. Are you guys ready? You will be on the lookout while Kwame and I get it done.
AK Studios presents Generator Boys. You know what they don't tell you about darkness? It's not just the absence of light. In Accra, darkness is a business opportunity. Darkness is a hustle. And for some people, desperate people, hungry people, people tired of waiting for a system that was never built for them, darkness is survival. This is a story about 4 young people who learned to control the darkness, and about the night the darkness controlled them back. They called themselves the Generator Boys, but this is not a success story. Nima, 18 months ago, the kind of Accra neighborhood where dreams come to negotiate with reality and usually lose, where the buildings lean on each other like drunk men, and the air smells of kilewille frying, gutter water, and unfulfilled potential. Meet Kwame, 24 years old, secondary school dropout, hustling belts at the Oxford Street traffic lights. Every day the same. Wake up, hustle, count small change, sleep, repeat. His father's old generator sitting in the corner of their single room like a monument to better days. The old man, God rest him, used to run a small welding shop before the economy chewed him up and spat him out. Now the generator just gathered dust. Then came the night everything changed. Dumsor. You know the word. Everybody in Ghana knows the word. That night, the transformer in Nima gave up. The whole area, darkness, pure, thick, suffocating darkness. Kwame watched from his window as Auntie Da paced up and down, worried about the meat in her cold store. And then he looked at that generator in the corner, that dusty, forgotten machine, and something clicked. He found fuel, rolled that generator across the street, plugged in Auntie Na's freezer, charged her 50 cedis for the night. She paid it, grateful, relieved. 50 cedis, just like that, more than he made in 3 days of traffic. You see where this is going, don't you? Kwame knew he couldn't do this alone, so he went to his people, his squad, the ones who'd been grinding in these streets since they were teenagers. There was Kofi, smooth talker, always had a scheme, always saw angles other people missed, the kind of guy who could sell you your own shoes and make you thank him for it. Nee, street smart, a bit reckless, but also the one who'd share his last kenke with you, loyal to a fault. He is also the technician. He understands power lines, circuits, voltage, things he learned by watching, not schooling. And Kwabena, youngest of the group, 20, quiet, thoughtful, the one who still believed the system might work if you just tried hard enough. 4 young people, 1 generator, and a city that went dark at least twice a week. They pooled their money, 400 cities total, everything they had, and bought a used generator from a dubious dealer in Aboseokai. That first week, they cleared 300 cedis profit. The second week, 600. By the third week, they'd bought 2 more generators. You understand what this meant for them? Kwame's mother could finally afford her blood pressure medication, the real one from the pharmacy, not the fake one from the roadside. Kofi paid off his debts to a loan shark who'd been threatening his sister. For the first time in their lives, they weren't just surviving, they were winning. But here's the thing about winning in a rigged game. Eventually, you start wondering if you can rig it yourself. 4 months in, the generator boys were known, respected. When they rolled up with their machines, people were relieved. Ah, the boys are here, we'll be all right. But respect doesn't pay rent. And the problem with depending on Dumsor is that you can't predict it. Some weeks, the lights stayed on for days. No blackouts meant no business. No business meant no money. And their families, their mothers, their siblings, people who'd suffered for so long, they'd gotten used to eating properly, to medicine, to hope. It was Auntie Nee who said it first. Late night, the crew sitting at their favorite spot, sharing club beer and frustration.
You know, What if we didn't have to wait for Dumsor? What if we could help it along?
Silence. The kind of silence that precedes decisions you can't take back. Kwame's first instinct was to shut it down. But then he thought about his mother, measuring out half doses of medication to make it last. He thought about the politicians in their V8s with generators bigger than his whole house. He thought about ECG executives chopping money while Nima sat in darkness. Kofi was already calculating the logistics. The transformers are old pa. The wires are hanging like Christmas lights. We wouldn't be breaking anything that wasn't already broken. Kwame, if we do this, we do it smart. No hospitals, no police stations, just neighborhoods, residential. The lights fail there all the time anyway. Kwabena was the only one who said no immediately. This is different. We'd be causing the problem just to profit from it. That's not hustle. That's something else. But 3 voices beat 1. Nee knew cables, which lines were easy to cut, how to make it look like natural failure. They set rules, strict rules. Never near hospitals or clinics, always residential areas. The day of the first sabotage came.
We strike this evening. Are you guys ready? You will be on the lookout while Kwame and I get it done.
Kwame watched on as Nee cut the wires. One snip. That's all it took. One snip and the entire neighborhood, 200 homes, went dark. They waited 15 minutes, then rolled in with their generators like saviors. Made 800 cities that night. They told themselves they would stop soon. Just a few more times. Just enough to get stable. Then they'd go legitimate again. Lies we tell ourselves in the dark. 6 months passed. The operation grew sophisticated. They planned which areas they'd hit, how often. They had rotation schedules, so no place got suspicious. They expanded to 8 generators. The money was good, better than good, life-changing. Kwame moved his mother out of their single room into a proper 2-bedroom. She cried when she saw it, happy tears. He didn't tell her how he afforded it. Kofi opened a small shop for his sister, watched her sell provisions with pride instead of standing in traffic begging. Even Kwabena, guilty Kwabena, he couldn't deny it felt good to eat 3 times a day, to have new clothes. They started to believe their own lies, that they weren't really hurting anyone, that the system was broken anyway, that big men stole millions. What was their small compared to that? Radio. Increasing complaints about power outages in the Nima, Mamobi, and Asylum Down areas. ECG officials say they are investigating possible sabotage. But they were careful. Too careful to get caught, or so they thought. They hit their peak 6 weeks before everything fell apart. 15 generators, revenue of 3,000 cedis a week. They were young, they were eating, they were winning. Kwabena stopped arguing, did the work with dead eyes. The others told themselves he'd accepted it, that he'd come around. They didn't see what was breaking inside him. None of them did. The neighborhood clinic, the kind of hospital that ran on hope and duct tape. 7-year-old Amma Mensah had sickle cell disease. That evening, she went into crisis. The pain. Imagine your bones fighting your blood fighting your bones. Screaming pain. Her mother Afua rushed her to the clinic at 8 p.m. The doctors knew Amma, regular patient. They started treatment immediately, got her on oxygen, monitoring her vitals. Everything was under control until it wasn't. At 9:47 p.m., Nee climbed the pole in the area. Snip. Darkness. At the clinic, the lights died. For 30 seconds, this was normal. The backup generators would kick in. 30 seconds. But the generator was old. Maintained, yes. Tested, yes, but old. And old machines sometimes fail in ways that tests don't catch. The generator sputtered and died. 7 minutes. the hospital ran on darkness for 7 minutes. The oxygen machine on Amma stopped. The monitors went black. The doctors worked by flashlight and phone screen. But sickle cell crisis doesn't wait. By the time the generator was repaired and finally kicked in, Amma was gone. 7 years old, sickle cell patient number 247, daughter of Afua and Kofi Mensah, loved mangoes, afraid of lizards, wanted to be a nurse when she grew up, gone. The generator boys didn't know. Not yet. They were busy that night. Ran 12 customers, made their money and split it up. Went home tired but satisfied. Morning came the way morning always does, indifferent to tragedy. Kwame was counting money when Kofi burst in, phone in hand, face like he'd seen a ghost. Check the news. Check the fucking news. Kwame checked his phone. 7-year-old girl dies during clinic blackout. Clinic backup generator failed. Family demands investigation. Afua Mensah, inconsolable, as she describes watching her daughter die in the dark. Those were the headlines. The timestamp on the death certificate, 9:54 p.m. 7 minutes after Ni cuts the wires. Kwabena vomited in the corner, just fell to his knees and vomited everything inside him. Kofi kept saying, "It's not our fault. It's not our fault. The generators should have worked. It's not our fault." Like a prayer that stopped meaning anything. Ni punched the wall, broke 2 knuckles, didn't even feel it. And Kwame just stared at Amma's picture on the screen. 7 years old, school uniform, big smile. She was missing 2 front teeth. His mother's scan money was in his pocket. Paid for by a 7-year-old's life. Accra exploded. The story was everywhere. Social media, radio, TV, street corners, drinking spots. Everyone had an opinion. The hospital should have maintained their generators. ECG is useless, always has been. Where is the government? Why is our infrastructure failing? That poor mother. Imagine watching your child die in the dark. But nobody knew about 4 young people sitting in a room in Nima, unable to look at each other, unable to breathe, unable to escape the weight of what they'd done. They didn't work that night, or the next night, or the night after that. The generators sat silent. 1 week later, Kwabena called a meeting. First time they'd all been together since that night. He came with a backpack. Everything he owned inside it. "I'm going to the police," he said. Not asking, telling. The place erupted. Ni grabbed him by the shirt. "You'll get us all killed. You know what they do to people like us? They'll throw us in prison and lose the key." Kofi panicking. "Think about our families, your rent, my sister's shop, Kwame's mother. What happens to them?" But Kwabena wasn't hearing them. Not anymore. "I see her every time I close my eyes," he said quietly. "That little girl, 7 years old. I see her mother crying on the news. And you know what the worst part is? They are blaming everyone except us." Kwame found his voice finally. It came out broken. "What do you want us to do, Kwabena? Turn ourselves in and hope Ghanaians are merciful? They want to lynch us in the street." "Maybe we deserve it," Kwabena said. Silence. Or, Kofi added desperately, "we stop. Right now. Never do it again. Keep the generator business clean, donate some money to Amma's family anonymously, and try to make up for it somehow." Kwabena laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Make up for it? We killed her, Kofi. We killed a 7-year-old girl because we wanted money. And now you want to pay her family blood money and call it even?" Ni, angry. "What do you want us to say? That we're evil? Fine, we're evil, but we're also trying to survive in a country that wants us dead or desperate. You think those big men feel guilty about what they steal? You think they lose sleep?" "Kwabena, I don't care about big men. I care about us. I care about who we became. And I can't live with this." The crew fractured that night. Ni walked out first, furious. Kofi followed, crying. Only Kwame remained with Kwabena. "Kwame, if you do this, if you go to the police, you know I'll have to back you up. I can't let you walk into that alone. Kwabena, I know. Morning came. Kwame called the others, told them Kwabena was going to the police and he was going with him. They could join or not, their choice. One by one they came. 4 young people heading to the police station. The confession made headlines for weeks. Generator boys sabotage killed child. The story had everything. Young entrepreneurs, desperation, corruption, tragedy. Ghana split down the middle. Half wanted them jailed, half wanted them freed. Everyone had an opinion. The trial came fast. Evidence was clear. They confessed. 2 years in prison, then 5 years community service. 2 years later, they walked out. Free, but not free. Marked forever. The city had moved on, the way cities do. New scandals, new tragedies, new headlines. But the generator boys, they couldn't move on. Ni became an trained electrician, licensed, legitimate, careful. Kofi ran a youth center in Nima, talked to young people about choices, consequences, the hassle that isn't worth it. Kwabena struggled most, worked construction, but the anger and guilt never fully left. Some wounds don't close. Some people don't come back whole. And Kwame worked with an NGO documenting infrastructure failures, turned his story into data, advocacy, pressure for change, used his shame as fuel. Once a month, they met, all 4, at a chop bar in Nima. Awkward still, carrying the weight of shared guilt and shared survival. They didn't talk much about that night, but it was there, always, like a 5th person at the table. One evening, the lights went out, Dumsor, just like old times. Kwame broke the silence. You think it was worth it, confessing? Kwabena thought for a long moment. I don't know if it was worth it, but it was right. Sometimes that's all you can ask for, that you did the right thing, even when it cost everything. The lights came back on. The chop bar resumed its noise, but the 4 stayed quiet a moment longer. Ghana is still Ghana. ECG still fails. Hospitals still struggle. Politicians still chop. The system that broke these 4 young people, still breaking others. But somewhere in Nima, 4 people live with their scars and try every day to be better than their worst moment. They don't call themselves the generator boys anymore. They don't call themselves anything really. And when the lights go out, because the lights always go out eventually, they sit in the darkness and remember. There are lines you don't cross, even when you are desperate, especially when you are desperate. Because the darkness you create trying to survive, that darkness follows you forever. This is a story about 4 young people who controlled the darkness until the darkness controlled them back. This is a story about Ghana, about hustle, about the cost of choices made when the system offers no good options. But most of all, this is a story about the moment, that terrible, necessary moment where you have to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, who am I becoming? And if you don't like the answer, what are you willing to lose to change it?